So, welcome back, everyone. I am very excited to introduce our featured readers, and I'm going to start with Leila Kulpas. Leila Kulpas has a medical degree, a fellowship in psychiatry, and an honors degree in English. Her poetry has appeared in an Ascent Aspirations Magazine anthology and has been accepted for publication in 4 upcoming anthologies. It has also been published on the internet by Pandora's Collective, in Autumn House Review, and in Island Writer. And we know Leila well from our open mic and other prep events, and we really love her poetry, so please welcome Leila Kulpas. Yes. Oh, yes, and thank you.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
I will turn off the escalator.
Okay, I'd like to thank you, Zoe, and also Leanne and Planet Earth Poetry for all the enjoyment I've had from it for over the years. Tonight, I'm reading a series of love poems, collectively entitled Renewal. The first one is called For Me Alone.
Just get you a little closer to the mic.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
How's that? Good. For me alone. In your online photograph, you're seated on a boulder. Your face seems younger than the posted 60-something, which itself might be a few years shy of your actual age. Your voice on the telephone is strong as roots jammed into a cliff with a touch of honey. I linger on your photograph. It was you once, at least. The man I meet looks as young as the one in the photograph. But as we stroll through the city and our conversation moves from childhood's spying out the lives of small creatures to more weighty topics, you look older. Together now, I see the older version as your mask for every day. And when we lie gazing into each other's eyes, your face, for me alone, is like that of an 18-year-old. Loveliness in shadows. On weekends, we visit the house you grew up in, yours since your mother died. Built on sand, you say, should be sold. Buckled linoleum, threadbare rugs, iffy lights, I nod. But I'm beginning to know the loveliness in the shadows of the old house. The planes, lines, and colours of objects that had seemed ordinary, coalescing into entities ever more intriguing. Most, things your father discovered. His collecting began early, you say. In childhood, he filled his parents' attic. The bedraggled flower, central to a Japanese relief, amuses and amazes me. You mention the centuries of craft behind a Chinese vase that now glows like pale blossoms at twilight. I'm fascinated by the complexity of a centuries-old Persian relief in shades of blue. I ask about the large face glaring towards the front door and baring its teeth. With 3 bulging eyes, it's surrounded by small skulls. You know only that it comes from Tibet. We find it on the internet. Mahakala, the Buddhist bodhisattva of compassion. Its fierceness dedicated to helping overcome obstacles to enlightenment and scaring away evil spirits. When the house is empty, they must long for the touch of eyes, for voices to tell their fragmented stories. Or perhaps, like street children proffering gardenias in funnels of newspaper at the edge of a fiesta, they're comforted by the shadows. You say these things are like parts of you. Much still awaits my discovery and appreciation about them and you. You sketch yourself with a brush, scarcely touched with colour. Nuzzling amidst stars. Again, you catch the little doe, nibbling hyacinth shoots in the garden, rail gently, half-heartedly give chase. but I see tenderness springing between you. She reappears with white-spotted twins, teetering on sticks of legs when the garden is full of bluebells. We talk to her in bird voices, invite her to stay till they're grown. She is with me, nuzzling her babies amidst a lake of blue stars as I slide to sleep. Like a finger feels. She stomped, clanked, and screamed, purple-faced, swinging her dear little switches from high in the air, crisscrossing small legs in red. Poor mother. Sneaking away to a field, I'd sink into dry grass and dandelions, and in the warmth of the sun, the burr and blur of insects and small birds frissening through me, slow dance with clouds. Long after I escaped, the concept of a childhood free of fear seemed strange and wondrous. Would it feel like a finger feels inside the tiny curling feathers lining a small bird's nest? But tonight, with you and our friends at dinner, high on talk and laughter, a soft cloud kept forming and reforming around my shoulders, myself free in your complete acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Leila, thank you so much. I really love that last line and the bird's nest. Oh, so lovely. Let's just all let that sink in for a minute. Okay, so that was a really wonderful way to start our featured readings. And now I'm really excited to welcome Wendy Donawa. Victoria poet Wendy Donawa grew up on Vancouver Island, then spent 3 decades of her adult life in Barbados, where she worked as college instructor and museum curator. She now lives in Victoria on the traditional territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt peoples. Her poems appear in journals, anthologies, and her 3 chapbooks. Her first collection, Thin Air of the Knowable, Brick Books 2017, was finalist for the Gerald Lampert Award. Our Bodies Unanswered Questions is her second book, and is part of the famed Frontenac Quartet for 2021. And I always like to try to dig up a quote from our featured readers, and I found this one in an essay that Wendy wrote for the New Quarterly, which was actually about writing a specific poem, Eye of God, but I thought this quote was very appropriate for the times that we're living in right now. Wendy said, "How to remain porous to the wretchedness of the world in this troubling and unreadable historical moment. How to find those grace notes of compassion and beauty that animate and energize a poem," which really, I feel that sums up the whole paradox of trying to write poetry at all in this moment. And I really think that Wendy's poems do that beautifully. So I'll let her come up and read some to you.
Spritz, the spritz.
On the floor.
I just like to make it interesting for myself.
Thank you.
Look at everything.
Mutton Jeff show. Thank you, Zoe, for that lovely introduction. Thank you, Leila, for your very moving poems. Thank you, Russells, for giving Pep a new home. And thank you, all of you who have trudged here through the night to honor poetry and its reach for the transcendent in these dark times. It put me in mind of Brecht's poem, "In the dark times, will there always also be singing?" Yes, there will also be singing about the dark times. Over my 4+ years of gathering a heap of poems into a manuscript, I became increasingly interested in writing form poetry, poetry with a structure that compresses and shapes words and lines into a particular form. And since Pep's very tolerant open mic has heard me try out so many poems, I thought to do something a little different, so I'll start with half a dozen of my form poems. The first one is a pantoum. Stroke of Genius. The pantoum is written in quatrains, 4 lines, and the second and fourth line of each quatrain is the first and third line of the next one. So it sort of loops around and around until it ends up where it started. The first and the last lines are the same. Stroke of Genius. The operation was successful, but something askew, leakage, slippage, so they went in again. But the tube, the stent, the something or other, askew, leakage, slippage, contamination, and so the stroke. But the tube, the stent, something woke you to a world transmogrified. Contamination, and so the stroke. Visitors, slow fish, butting noses on the glass. You woke to a world transmogrified, a sluggish tide receding with your words. Visitors, slow fish, butting noses on the glass. Oh, wordsmith, your poems so wild and winged, a sluggish tide subsumes your words with sad shuffles and nursery food. Oh, wordsmith, your poems so wild and winged, now your left side hangs from a life of sad shuffles and nursery food. Now others pencil in your ending. Your left side hangs from your life since they went in again. Now others pencil in your ending, but the operation was a success. And the second one, another sonnet for the evening, the highly formal 14 lines with which I've taken some liberties. On my failure to intervene, I've begun to resent my 6 kale plants, she said, meaning my life is floundering. But I spoke of soil acidity and poured another Chardonnay. In a room crowded with conversations, sometimes something is left unsaid, something that, if spoken, would have changed everything. We have left undone those things we ought to have done, and there is no health in us. She should have tried lacinato kale, its dark, crepey leaves, all gloom and mopery that night. This year will be known as the Great Torpor. I've written more about death than I have about love, and nothing about good food. The third form I've used here is an acrostic. What is to give light must endure burning. This title is quoted from the great philosopher and Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl. And in the acrostic, each word in the quotation is listed down as the first word in each line. So it reads the same up and down. What is to give light must endure burning. What pilgrimage from wave to particle is the cedar's feathered green decline to kindling? Its straight grain transfigured, flame and flare to give us metaphors, to bundle all the painful light seeping unwanted insight. Seems pain must be the antidote to blissful ignorance. Why not choose? Endure a comfortable somnolence, not the heart in its bony cage burning, sparks perilous as wildfire. The next poem is a rondo, and if you know Flanders Field, it's exactly the same rhyme scheme and cadence and length. The rondo has a lovely cadence that lends itself to poems of contemplation or tenderness. The rain persisted through the night. The rain persisted through the night, darkened the morning, so we leave on the light that sieves the air, blanches the window pane, screens treetops in their scrims of rain. The room so quiet, just a slight rustle as your hand moves left to right, some inner cadence as you read, eyes bright under our lamp's yellow cone. It stains the darkness persisting from the night, but clear as a pond deep in solstice. Right now, I could swim through this dark light to the small sounds of your breathing, plain as the quiet of my heart, of the rain, of winter jasmine in a jar of light, although the rain persisted through the night. Sorry, it sticks. Ah, there it is. This is a palindrome, and it's kind of fun to do. You write a fairly complete little poem, and then you turn it inside out. So when you get to the end, that's the first line of the rest of the poem, and you reverse all the way down until you end with the last line, which is the first line of the whole thing. So again, you see the same line twice in a different context. So it's more than just a reversal. It should provide a switch in tone or meaning. The title is Long Distance Aubade. An aubade is a lover's farewell at dawn. Think Romeo and Juliet. But here, this is a modern aubade. The speaker bemoans the constant farewells and aubades of a modern long-distance relationship. Long-distance aubade. Love you just a little ways away, you write, near rain-bleared vistas from your coffee shop or office or fogged-in Coquihalla with snow on the way. To coastal eyes, your rhizoid flatlands bleak as Ozymandias sands, but I'm all over the map across mountains to you. The material world reverses dream and experience, figure and ground revolve, so real life, lunch on the balcony, sun on our faces, seems rare and strange, peerless dailiness. Monthly aubades are called for, bare elms, a basket for the wind. Was there a time I lit candles before loving, sprinkled cinnamon on your toast? At night, bad poems crumpled carpet the floor, and my mind's a skewed thesaurus. Lopsided moon wobbles across a rider's sky. You could call it depression, label and file it, but I call it loss. Time gnaws any sense of the possible. When our used bodies gather each other, benediction. Talk can turn to pensions and hearing aids, but how exactly right? Your head, its weight on my arm. How exactly right? Your head, its weight on my arm. Talk turns to pensions and hearing aids, but we gather each other, a benediction, speak of the possible. When our used bodies, what I call loss, gnaw at that sense, call it depression, label and file it, lob it across a rider's sky, you could. And my mind's a skewed thesaurus, Lopsided moon at night, bad poems crumpled, carpet the floor before loving. Sprinkling cinnamon on toast, lighting candles, futile as baskets for the wind. Monthly obads are called for. Bare elms seem rare and strange. Peerless dailiness of real life. Lunch on the balcony, sun on our faces. Reverse dream and experience. Figure and ground revolve across mountains to you. The material world shifting as Ozymandias sands, but I'm all over the map, from coastal Aries to rhizoid flatlands, bleak office or fogged-in Coquihalla with snow on the way. By rain-bleared vistas from your coffee shop, love you, you write, just a little ways away. And that's a sample of my form poems, and I'll continue with my more usual lyric-free verse, I guess you'd call it. Kettle of Hawks. I love weird collective terms and have written a number of poems for an excuse to use them. Anyway, Kettle of Hawks. Hawks choose open fields, desert, the plunge and rend of prey, though they can live anywhere, even this canyon of condos. I looked up from my book as he lit on the balcony, arm's length away. His yellow glare seized me. What threw his flight path awry? What of me did his vision inhale? Detector of ultraviolet, of magnetic fields, his fovea in large focus fourfold. What poems might I write with his arsenal? Perhaps he saw a poor, bland creature, mole blind, without the four receptors, bringing him hues beyond our spectrum. We don't even have a word for them. Perhaps his augmented focus on my jugular vein, its blood throb, evinced a brief interest. My slow finger kept its place in the book as he dismissed the mammal in its glass cage, returned to kinetic memories, his kettle of hawks wheeling and swirling in the thermals, circling up and up when mating till they latch and free fall. Who would not choose that ecstasy? In this poem, the speaker discovers that even the most vulnerable of our fellow citizens still hunger for meaning and beauty. Transitional housing intake interview. Morning, he tells me. He stands at the window, looks down on treetops, plum blossom frothy in its season, then green. Beyond them, sirens pass. 3 floors below, the courtyard teems with breakfast lineups, shopping carts, dealers, and a few dogs. It pleases him. So does his door, which locks, and his own toilet, and the walls taped memorial flyers. Some faces so young, you want to take them in your arms, say, stay. He moves painfully, rocks on his chair with slow answers. Something grave about his courtesy with our intrusive questions, jargon, clipboards. With luck, he'll get a 3-year stay, perhaps eye surgery, his teeth fixed, maybe. Palatial buildings rise, cast shadows everywhere. Cranes raise ponderous arms. Born in the north, doesn't want to speak of residential school, survived on the street since 14. In good years, worked all through the West, mill towns, factories, lumber camps. Asked why he settled in an expensive city, he says, I arrived at Christmas, all green, and its little lights everywhere. I want beauty in my life. This one is a curse on the greeting card industry, although I know you said we weren't supposed to be having bad attitudes towards people. I have towards this. It's very stimulating to write a full blast curse poem, especially to an industry making millions from cliches and dumbed down language that cheapens thought and emotion. Originally, I named all the names and then was warned that lawyers could be involved. So it's just the greeting card industry in general. I don't think they'll get me. All the quotes I've used here, except for a few that are lovely and you'll recognize as Elizabeth Barrett Browning's, all the quotes were taken from the cards in the aisle of my unnamed supermarket. A curse on the greeting card dynasty. May you have to live your own words. May cards arrive trite and twee, toxic with platitudes. May they diminish you. When you loved along with the breath smiles, tears of all your life, may your beloved mail you a cute daisy card with, all the petals will fall because I've fallen for you. There's a special category of cute, really. When you commit yourself to lifelong love to the depth and breadth, your whole and height your soul can reach, may the marzipan sweetness of the Ken and Barbie dolls on your wedding cake send you into diabetic stupors. When wedding well-wishers wish all your troubles are little ones, may they not be the golden cherubs of the glitter card, but triplets wild with colic and allergic to milk. May the world's multiplicity, its bone and tendon, dissolve in saccharin, and your solace be to find a kitty cuddle is the best way to keep cozy with someone special. This with kitty illustration. May your 30th birthday cards arrive with a pointy-hatted magician. His 30 is a magical age. Your youth just kind of goes poof. May he clip his toenails at the coffee table. Hers 30 is a magical age with wrinkles. May she weep into her $85 deluxe replenishing cream. May creative efforts to change direction bring a special passive-aggressive response card to say, wow, really? Wow. May you receive increasingly jokey birthday cards, hinting hilariously at dementia, incontinence, and erectile dysfunction. But may even the mawkish comfort you at the end when a starry card assures you, even in our darkest moment, we can count on glimmers of light. As you stare at the ceiling in the darkness, thinking there must be more than this, may a Disney puppy card slide under the door to say, I know you'll get through this just fine. And I will finish with a short-haul domestic flight. It has an epigraph by Deanna Young. This short-haul domestic flight that is our time on Earth. Here's how it was. We left early for the airport, yawned through empty roads on the watch for deer. Dawn mist makes ghosts of everything. Spoke quietly, separate days ahead, some sadness. Quack of announcement, kerfuffle of goodbyes, small plane quickly boarded. always an astonishment to lift above the river valley, its lambent current, indigo cliffs, neat acreages stipped by roads. The sun then, combing prickly fields, igniting westward peaks. Soon we hung over the city, crinkling unopenable snack packets, awaiting the solid clunk of landing gear, destination. But the landing gear screeched and grated, stuck. The tarmac ribboned up to us, then veered away. A new paradigm entered our lives, circling an arc north and back through the morning's blue tranquility. Our plane's tiny shadow crawled across fields, carved the calm shelf of the lake. The young pilot's voice shook when he said no cause for alarm. The airport's resources would support our arrival. It wasn't a Hollywood moment. No one shrieked or wept or prayed loudly. We read our emergency leaflets, avoided eye contact, everyone texting. I thought, how Canadian. I wondered how much fuel in the tanks. I remembered Raymond Carver's late fragment. And what did you want? To find myself beloved on the earth. I recalled a late night, sleepless, pajamaed, startled by the window's thwack, a night bird seduced by my reading lamp. In the morning, 2 angel wings perfect stencil on the dusty pane. Everything in slow motion. The 2 hours seemed long. Finally, the implacable tarmac rushed to greet us. Metronome of landing gear, its grind and rasp, protesting shriek of a braided metal, crump and tilt of its stop. Upended, we spilled out the front, an honor guard of fire engines at attention. Some stood stunned, like strangers waiting for a bus. Some took selfish. The plane behind crumpled rakishly on its nose cone. Solicitous uniforms bustled us away into the ordinary day. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Wendy? I have one. That especially after hearing that last poem, I just wonder if you have any thoughts on writing through sheer terror, which I feel we've mostly all been doing for the last year or so, 2 years.
I wrote a lot after. It was a long time before I stopped jangling enough to write it as a poem.
Interesting. So you wrote and wrote, and then eventually it could possibly become a poem.
Yeah.
Huh. Other questions, thoughts, comments?
Is there a form that you don't enjoy writing, Wendy?
I like trying things out. I wouldn't write sonnets for years. I think they're very hard to get right. And then I took a workshop with John Barton, and he made us write sonnet after sonnet, like cracking the whip. It's very interesting if you have a small, neat package you want to comment on.
I don't think I've heard anyone read an acrostic in a very long time. That was very effective, though. How do you choose these forms? Like, how do you know what forms?
I hear them, or I read them, or I've got
In fine
form.
in fine form. Thank you. And it is a lovely book about all the different forms of poetry that you've never heard of, as well as the ones you've ever heard of. And what I really love about it, it uses all Canadian poetry to illustrate. There are a lot of good poems about writing poetry, but they're always American or English, maybe a couple of 100-year-old Canadian poems dropped in. So I felt this was very patriotic. I liked it. So it inspired me to at least try some as examples.
Did you write poetry in Barbados?
I did. I guess I've always written it as a kind of private hobby. It didn't occur to me that anyone might be interested in it. And then I came to PEP and sat in the back thinking, could I read a poem here? No, I can't. Yes, I can. No, I can't. So, so thank you, PEP.
Do you remember the first poem you read?
No. No, but I guess I got through it and sat down again.
Oh, I love that. Other questions?
Are there some new poems that you're finding, or poems that you're finding interesting? I think it was you who introduced me to the duplex. Was that you who did that?
The
Duplex.
Oh yes, I did a duplex.
Yeah,
Once I read Jericho Brown.
Careful now.
Yeah,
So
and I
also-
thought it was just beautiful. It's like a very complicated combination of a guzzle and it's seven couplets, and the first and last line are the same. And in each couplet, the last line of the couplet must be repeated or echoed in the first line of the next couplet. So it's another one of those.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, are there other new forms that you can explore?
No, I think I haven't really got through all the old ones yet. No, I don't do it all the time, but I just realized when I'd finished the manuscript that I actually had quite a few. So I included them.
Other questions in the back there? All right, well, I think I'll take the mic back.
Thank you very much.